So again, this is our webinar about managing technical writers. If you're in the wrong webinar, then we're glad to have you anyway. So my name is Barry Safe. I've been in technical documentation for over 32 years. I led teams of technical writers at 6 companies in the U.S. In 2011, I founded a company called Safe Solutions, which is a technical writing outsourcing firm based in Tagaytay City in the Philippines. And we provide technical writing and related services to some very large companies in the U.S. and Japan. And I love acronyms. I won't share with you my acronyms for acronym and acronyms. So this is our agenda. We already covered where we're located. Right now we're in the U.S. and the Philippines. We'll talk about management as a sacred trust. I'm going to go over the 5 elements of CARVE, which I think are very important to understand about management. We'll talk about the 7 habits of highly successful technical writers. We'll talk about how to empower your staff through Thrive, and we'll focus in Thrive on integrity. We'll talk about powerful motivation using the acronym SLAP, and we'll talk about managing cross-cultural teams. Now, in the registrations that people sent in, 3 topics that seemed the most popular were the 7 habits, motivation, and managing cross-cultural teams. And then we'll talk about what your particular challenges are, and we'll answer questions. And any questions I don't get to on the webinar, I will follow up with people afterwards. So we've already covered that. So let's look at what are your interests or experiences in managing technical writers. So let's start with this. Have you managed a team of writers? And you can type yes or no, or you can type a more specific answer. I see 2 yeses. Okay. Have you led a team without management authority, which is kind of a common situation, I think, for technical writer managers? No. We have a no there. All right. Have any of you managed outsourced or offshore writers? Yes. So, yes, we've got a couple yeses there. Any of you have experience hiring writers? Nope. Okay, how about firing? Who has fired a technical writer? We got a yes there. Okay. A couple, 2 yeses. All right. And how many of you have worked for someone that you would call a good manager? Could be a technical writing manager or some other kind of manager that you worked for. Yes, that's good. And how many of you, that's 2 yeses. How many of you have worked for a not so good manager? We have an, oh God, yes. Yes. Yeah, those not so good managers are kind of I guess I shouldn't use the word popular. Let's see, any other kind of experience you want to mention here? You can type that in the chat window. All right, so management is a sacred trust, and of course none of us want to do the things on this slide, but some of those bad managers end up doing these things. They destroy morale. They can even destroy the success of the company. They can certainly negatively impact people's careers and their jobs. On the positive side, management is a sacred trust, and managers have the power to build careers, to achieve miracles, to treat people fairly, to develop lifelong relationships of trust, to turn lives around, to empower people to be more effective and productive, to enable people to learn things that make them more successful and turn the enterprise around. So management is really the key to any organization. If the organization is not well managed, it's difficult to achieve anything together. So let's talk about CARVE. CARVE stands for Caring, Access, Respect, Vision, and Expect Excellence. So caring, picture a mother in an inner city. The city is very loud. To be able to sleep, she must ignore the sounds. Yet when her baby cries, she wakes up. That is the level of caring that a manager is. And we'll talk more about caring in the next few slides. Access is also very important. Your people need regular access to you, and you need access to your management. As a manager, if you don't have access to your management, it's very difficult to succeed. Respect is, of course, crucial to management. You need to understand how to deeply respect people, how to treat everyone with respect. And I've got a separate infographic about the 7 elements of balance which make up respect. Be authentic, listen, appreciate, notice, challenge, and believe in people. We'll be sending you that infographic after this, but we'll talk more about respect in some of the future slides. Vision is also crucial. Make sure each person understands how what they do contributes to the success of the whole. Keep the mission, vision, and values of the company alive. People need vision to be empowered and to be inspired about their work. And then expect excellence. Expect great things from your staff. Expect more than they think they can accomplish. Okay, let's move on. Caring. So the fundamental way of being of a manager is caring. A manager cares about the results, cares about the process, cares about the people, and cares about the enterprise. This is the whole ball game. It's all about caring. So as a manager, you have opportunities to abuse your power, and that can harm people, harm the staff, harm the enterprise. And at times, you have to be selfless and act against what might be your own narrow self-interest. A good manager is a creator of healthy administration and an enemy of bureaucratic corruption and inertia. The mission, the customers, the enterprise, the people, and the results are more important than the rules. The rules are important, but they exist for a purpose, and there are times when to serve those purposes, you have to make exceptions. Rather than offering excuses for inaction, a good manager strives for continuous improvement, rational administration, fairness, and productivity gains. Now, that doesn't mean you're always perceived as fair, but nevertheless, you strive for fairness. So I'm just wondering, is this a new idea to people? Because there's certainly a lot of managers out there that don't seem to care very much. Have you ever thought about management in terms of caring? So type a yes if that's not a new idea to you. Oh, I think we have a yes there. Okay. All right, well, let's move on. And then with regard to access, have you ever had difficulties or stress at work because your manager had no time for you or had not enough time for you? Yes, okay. Yeah, given that some people had not good managers, we have a yes and we have a not really. Okay. Well, that's not always the problem, but often I've had that problem with managers. So respect, being respectful. It is unacceptable to accuse someone in front of others. This is something that people in Asian cultures, in the Philippines, for example, are very sensitive about. It is counterproductive to blame someone in private. Even if you don't think you're accusing or blaming, if the other person thinks you are, you're responsible for their perception. It's important to recognize that people think about these things differently, and particularly when you're managing people in different cultures, they may just interpret things very differently from how you're used to interpreting them. And I find working with Filipinos, I need to be very careful not to do anything that comes close to blaming or accusing. And one of the ways I avoid that is before I tell someone what I see happening, I ask them what's going on for them and how they see the situation. It is unacceptable to raise your voice in anger, use profanity, or act in a less than civil or businesslike manner. Now that's true in any workplace really, but again in many Asian cultures, even raising your voice a little bit, not necessarily in anger, is a problem and can make people very uncomfortable. A manager knows how to manage their emotions without dumping them on people in the workplace. This is one of the most important skills for a manager, that you don't react, you respond powerfully, you create, you have your feelings, and you understand the difference between passion and emotion. Emotions are crucial, they're important, but you don't want your emotions to control you and set the program. And then it's important to be respectful of yourself. So one of the ways you do that is expand the realm of what you consider yourself responsible for, right? So there's a difference between, a very fundamental difference between responsibility and blame. Responsibility is empowering. The more that you choose to take responsibility for, the more power you have to affect the outcomes. And then also do not accept being treated with less than full respect. So, an example of that here in the Philippines, Filipinos tend to avoid conflict, and they're reluctant often to ask questions or to confront people. And so I explain to them regularly that if I, give the group an instruction and you don't like it or you have a problem with it, you think it's not going to work, and you just nod your head and say yes, that's disrespectful. To me, that's how I think about it. And it's different maybe than how you think about it. If you interrupt and say, Barry, I really think that's not going to work, that is a way to treat me with respect. So people have different views of respect. It's important to understand that. And to give yourself a break. You will make mistakes, and that's how you learn. Vision. Without vision, management is damaging. If all people can do is come to work and do their job without any sense of purpose or meaning to it, it's unlikely that they're going to be very happy at work. So vision is important, and the key to inspiration is to be inspired yourself. And I've often said that if life were to come with an instruction manual, when a baby is born, if you've got a manual, there's one sentence. I think the manual should have, if it only has one sentence, this should be the sentence. You are responsible for your own inspiration. Find out what inspires you and have yourself be inspired every day, and the people around you will be inspired. Keep the mission, vision, and values of the organization alive in everyone. Make sure people understand how their work forwards the whole. So I'm interested, now most organizations have a mission or a vision, and I'm not going to ask any of you to recite that or type what the mission or vision is, but if you are really clear on what that is, please type yes in the chat window. I'm just interested, how many people? We have one yes, another yes, another yes. Well, that's great. That is really great to see. Okay, good. Okay, and then expect excellence. So you may have heard of Dr. Wayne Dyer, who died in the last 6 months, I think, recently. And he was a psychologist and speaker and trainer, and he was very well known for this idea that expectations have a huge impact on performance and on results. So, what you expect is often what you get, or very close to it. So be very aware of your expectations and choose them wisely, and expect great things of your people. So, this is our first question point, where I want to find out from you what, in your experience, are the most difficult management issues. And you're welcome to unmute yourself and speak at this point, or you can type in the chat window. Okay, employee conflicts. That's a good one. Process. Okay, working with groups across geographies and time zones. So, Pat, I wonder if you could say more about employee conflict. What kind of conflicts you're seeing? So working with IT group between staff. Okay. So staff undermining each other. Yes. So one thing I have found is very helpful for that kind of employee conflict, where one staff person is undermining others, or well, two things really. One is, they call it team building. So the staff having experiences together outside the office, doing things together. We every few months we have a team building day for our staff where they get some experiences together. It could be there's you can do a ropes course. You can just have a meeting where you do activities and games. Filipinos are very into games. That may be less popular in the United States. So we had a gathering where we split into teams, and each team created their own game, which the whole group then participated in. The other thing is training. And there's kind of empowerment training. There's a lot of great training organizations out there, and one that I can highly recommend is Landmark Education, landmarkeducation.com. And they're all over the U.S. and many places around the world. They're no longer operating in the Philippines, but they have some great courses that help you, that are very good for team collaboration. Now we have a, oh, by the way, I will be sending the slides to everyone after the presentation. So thanks, Julie, for joining us. She has to leave now. So with regard to training, we have a trainer who's really good at empowering teams to work together and collaborate. So I guess my answer to that about the team conflict is, number one, give them some different experiences together, some group experiences. And number two, get some outside help, because there's some really, all over the world, there's some fantastic trainers that can really make a difference with your team. And then we're going to talk more about cross-cultural work and working across geographies. So let me come back to that. So let's move on and go to the 7 habits of highly effective technical writers. And you see a picture of me there holding the pencil. Actually, that's not me. That's our mascot for Safe Solutions. That's an Ella bunny. It's a combination of an elephant and a bunny. So the first habit of highly effective technical writers, don't take it personally. And that's really all about learning. So, and this is something that I really have to emphasize with our Filipino technical writers, because in general, Filipinos tend to be very sensitive emotionally and tuned in and to take things personally. But, when I have a new technical writer start, I tell them, look, every day you're going to come to work, and maybe 5, 10, 20 times a day you're going to be told that what you did was incorrect. And is that okay with you, right? So this is really the most important skill for a technical writer, They need to seek out criticism. They need to value it, to love it, and to learn from it. Number two, learn before asking. So learn as much as you can from available resources before asking questions. And in this way, you respect the time of the experts that you're working with, and you impress them with your ability to ask intelligent questions. This is very important, particularly for subject matter experts that don't have a lot of experience working with tech writers, or maybe only have bad experience working with tech writers. You want to show them that you're committed to not wasting their time and to making the most of the resource they are. Number three is ask. Always ask questions. Ask frequently and ask for help. Don't try to do it alone. Rewrite, number four. And I think this is true. If you pick three of your favorite writers of all time, if you somehow have the ability to see their first drafts, they probably wouldn't be very good. The best writers are the best rewriters. So rewrite, rewrite, rewrite. Number five, acquire feedback through testing and reviews. You have to ensure that your writing gets adequate testing and review. And this is important for managers. One of the things that's great, if you can achieve it in your organization, is to have the QA team actually test the documentation. Now that requires, it may require a change to the process of the entire organization to enable that to happen. But if you can make that happen, it's tremendously valuable. And of course, the tech writers need to test their work, but to have the QA team do it as well is really wonderful. Number six, understand before publishing. So when you start writing something, you may not fully understand it, and that's fine. But by the time you publish, make sure you do understand. If you don't understand what you write, your readers are not likely to understand it either. And then I've added the second part to it recently because I've seen that it's important, particularly for new writers, they need to understand what they're writing. So even if it's just a draft that you're only going to, at this point, show to your editor, you need to either fully understand what you wrote or have a list of questions. Do not write a sentence that you yourself do not understand. And if writers follow that instruction, it will save everyone a lot of time and trouble. And then number seven is contribute. Notice things. Does the prototype work as expected? Are the labels capitalized consistently? Ask questions, make suggestions, be a part of the development team. So those are the 7 habits of highly effective technical writers. This was my most popular blog post. There's a lot of interest in these 7 habits, and I've had a number of requests to come up with another 7 advanced habits, which I'm working on. So let's move on to empowerment. So there's 6 elements here: training, all kinds of training, and at Safe Solutions we work with 4 different external trainers. We have a variety of training programs, but the opportunity to work with someone more senior is in itself a training opportunity. And one of the things that is, I think, unique about our company here in the Philippines is I don't think any other company in the Philippines offers new technical writers the opportunity to work with someone like myself with over 30 years experience in the field, and also to work with our editors who each have 10 or more years experience. So all kinds of training is very important. And you, as a manager, you should identify what are the kinds of training that your team most needs, and also for individuals, and then work on getting them that training however you can. You may not have a training budget, but nowadays you don't need a budget to do training. There's so many free resources online and all over that are available. Heard. Make sure that each person feels heard, even those who don't communicate frequently or don't speak up as much. They need to be heard. They need to feel heard. Respect. We've talked about that, and it's very important. It's kind of the bedrock of being a manager. Integrity, and we're going to go into that in more detail in the next 2 slides. Vision, we've discussed that quite a bit. And then empowerment in general. So in addition to training, One way to empower people is exposure, is show people that you have trust and confidence in them. When you expose them to customers, to upper management, to the wider team, to the professional community, you communicate that you believe in them. So let's talk about integrity. Integrity is fundamental to management. And it requires a deep respect for the power of your own words. So when you say something, respect what you said. Try to follow through on everything you say, and try not to make promises that you won't be able to keep or that you don't intend to keep. Be responsible when you can't keep your promise, then be proactive to take responsibility for mitigating the impact on others. And when that's the kind of thing that of course you're going to do with your customers or with your manager, but when you do that with your team as well, when you show them that you respect them by communicating when you're not able to keep a commitment to them, that really, it demonstrates your respect and how you value them. And of course, model the behaviors, attitudes, and approaches you want to develop in the staff. Integrity is really about taking responsibility and examining whenever there's a problem, is it possible that I'm the source of this in some way? Because as a manager, you really are the source. Not of necessarily all the problems, but you're a source for everyone on your team and others in the organization. So it's important to focus on yourself in problem situations and to learn. I often say that the two things that have most contributed to my success in life are, number one, learning about the world, number two, learning about myself. And you should never stop either of those. It's important to always keep learning more about yourself. Because most people don't drop out to learning about the world. But if you drop out learning about yourself, it can lead to big problems. So, and of course, don't cut corners with integrity. This is one of the, integrity and honesty are two of our corporate values at Safe Solutions. And of course, honesty does not mean telling everyone everything all the time. You need to respect confidentiality, and sometimes it's not appropriate to share certain information. Work at least as hard and as smart as your staff, and hold yourself accountable for the performance and results of your team. So let's move on to motivation. So these four elements, success, learning, accurate feedback, and praise, are, I think, really essential in motivation. So the first one is people need successes to be motivated. If they keep messing up and they're not doing well, find something they can succeed at. Because if they're really going to have a chance to improve, they need that win, even if it's a small one. And then, catch them doing something good, because that's an opportunity to praise them. So the more opportunities people have for success, the more motivated they become. Learning, if someone is not motivated by learning, is not interested in learning, they probably weren't a good hire. Learning is essential to technical writing. So giving people chances to grow, giving them training and opportunities to learn, asking them what they want to learn, and then following through and supporting them on that will really help motivate them. And then everyone needs accurate feedback. They need specifics, and that's very important, and they need it a lot more frequently than in the once-a-year performance review. They need feedback whenever you can give it to them, as frequently as you can. And the same with praise. And they say that, I've read that people need 5 times as much positive feedback as constructive criticism to achieve their best performance. So if you're not someone that praises people frequently, then get in the habit of doing that. Learn how to do that. Get some training or education to help you do that, because everyone needs to be acknowledged and praised. Of course, you only want to praise accurately. If someone didn't do a good job, then don't praise them. Give them accurate feedback. maybe find something that they did well you can praise them for. But always be honest and accurate with your people. So let's move on to managing cross-cultural teams. So I've got 3 key success factors here, and the first one is really crucial. It's amazing the difference it makes when you have even one person. So for example, here at Safe Solutions, we actually have quite a mix of different cultures in one location here. But when we started, it was really just Filipinos and myself, and I'm an American. And having me here made a tremendous difference. And it says there, that's one of our key success factors. We have this whole combination, and we have a combination of different experience levels, different cultures, different language experience, different cultural experience. That makes a tremendous difference, because when we're on the phone with a customer in the United States, our people have experience talking with an American because they speak with me every day, right? And then if I'm on the phone with them, that's also very helpful. Ensure editing, quality control, and inclusion. So it's interesting to me, I've talked with a number of managers of writing teams that are across continents or countries, and several of them have told me that when I ask them, so what is your setup for editing, they say, oh, well, like that was in the budget, but it was cut, and so we don't really have editing of the work that the writers in India say are doing. And I'm just incredulous, because particularly when you have technical writers whose first language is not English, editing is essential. And this is how Safe Solutions, we offer the same level of quality in our content that you get with writers in the United States because of our editors, because our clients don't see the content until it goes to one of our senior technical editors. So you really have to have editing. You have to ensure quality control and inclusion. So this is something else I've seen, that your writers, say in the United States, have access to your wiki, your intranet, your bug system, all your different ways of collaborating, your group emails, your meetings, conference calls, and then the writers who are overseas don't get any of that, and it's not surprising then that they don't do so well. You need to include the technical writers in every location, and yes, that becomes an issue because of the distance and the time zones, but there are ways to conquer those issues. And you have to kind of find out what works in your situation. In some cases, like we have a customer in Japan, and we work with a lot of their Japanese engineers, and they've found that although the engineers speak some English, it's very difficult communicating by conference call. We do that occasionally, but frequently they have a manager, an editor go to their office and work directly with that team for a week or two, and then bring back the information and the learning to the writers here, or they will come visit us. That's an extreme example. With all of our other customers, we find a combination of conference calls, video conferences, intranets, chat things like Slack or Skype can really both build relationships and enable essential communication to happen. And then the third key success factor is to embrace differences by increasing your awareness. So, different cultures, the mix of cultures, it's an area that can be like a minefield. You can step on things that you're not aware of that can blow up in your face. And there's really no way around the need to learn about other cultures and to learn new perspectives on your own culture. So how do people in this culture learn? How do they handle conflict? What does yes mean to them? In the Philippines, people will almost never say the word no. And so, for instance, if they hear, if I'm speaking to the group and they're all nodding their head yes, it might be that even if they say yes, what yes might mean is yes, I heard what you said and I respect you, but I didn't understand a word of it. So you really have to learn how to listen and how the people you're speaking to are listening. And really the key to this is getting to know people. I mean, certainly you can get yourself education in cross-cultural awareness. There's a lot of resources online you can find to learn about different cultures and about cross-cultural communication. But you really need to get to know people, because within any culture, the differences between people, of course, are tremendous, and not everyone in one culture is the same. You'll find certain patterns, but as you get to know people, you'll get to understand nuances and how people respond and how they feel when something happens. And it's essential to do that. So management, as we've seen, entails awesome responsibilities and awesome opportunity. Both are magnified by a mixture of cultures. So this is an example based on my experience here in the Philippines. People here are socialized to defer to authority figures, and particularly to foreigners. And they're very uncomfortable with anger or with raised voices. It's really an issue for people. The tendency is that they will shut down, withdraw, and stop communicating, which of course is really not helpful. So you want to understand how each person responds when they're feeling humiliated or angry or confused. So, you know, before I moved to the Philippines, people had told me, I know that many of my friends saw me as a very sensitive person. Well, compared to Filipinos, I'm seen as insensitive here at times, because it's both a strength and a weakness of Filipino culture that they're very sensitive to their own feelings and the feelings of others. So you really need to give up the idea that your culture is better. Every culture has strengths and weaknesses, and they're different strengths and weaknesses. And, you know, for example, in the Filipino family, the highest value in the Philippines is family. And, you know, while I come from the United States and I have a wonderful family, and I tell people I have the two best parents in the world, and I mean that, as a whole, the Filipino family is much stronger than the American family. I think the highest value in the United States is individual achievement, and that has some very different results than making family the highest value. So that's one example of strengths and weaknesses in different cultures. So I'm interested to know, what management challenge are you facing now? A couple of you have shared about that. Is there something that you could benefit from talking more about with me? I'm happy to have a private conversation with each of you. So if you would type in the chat window, or you can unmute yourself and speak up, and we can have a conversation about some of these issues. We have about 10 minutes left. Or if there's a question that I didn't answer fully that you'd like to hear more about, please either speak up or type that in the chat window, and I can address it in the time we have left. Let's see. Okay, all right. One response there, good, okay. Okay, good. So I'm going to go on to our last couple slides, and you can continue to type something if you're doing that. So we have some resources here, and We will be sending the presentation to everyone, including the balance infographic. And the rest of these resources are all on our blog. You go to safesolutions.com, click on blog, you'll see them there, and you have links in the presentation as well. I'm interested if this is a good time for people, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, or if there's a better time you'd suggest that we have these webinars, because we'll be having more webinars in the coming months. So there's some resources, and then here's contact info. And I'm going to be speaking at LavaCon Dublin in Dublin, Ireland. It's the first ever LavaCon in Europe. And I'll be speaking on this topic about managing technical writers. And then we'll be exhibiting during that conference. Safe Solutions will have a table. And we'll also be exhibiting at User Assistance Europe in Budapest in June, and then at LavaCon Las Vegas, and maybe one or two other conferences this year. We'll be doing more webinars, and we'll have more blog posts and resources. Okay, so then I've got one bonus slide about creativity in the face of stress. So a good manager creates and protects a healthy culture. That's a corporate culture, a team culture, organization culture. Culture lives in the details, in every moment, every action, every interaction. So think about how you deal with stress, because you are a role model for your team. Your stress level impacts them. Successful managers rely on the 3 C's: caring, competence, and creativity. Creativity, resourcefulness, those are, key skills of a manager. And, dealing with stress, reducing stress is different for every person. Find out what works for you, and then you can help your team members find out what works for each of them. So thank you very much for joining us. If anyone has any final questions, you can type them in or speak up, and we'll address them. I'm going to leave up this contact slide, and then we'll be sending you information soon. Thank you very much. All right. All right. Look forward to speaking to you again soon. Bye.